One, recording. All right. Hey, everybody. Thank you so much for coming to our presentation today. I'm Jordan Musser, and I'm a speech pathologist in Denton ISD.
I'm Alex Rose, and I'm also a speech pathologist from Denton ISD.
And then we don't have her present today, but we have a deaf education teacher who really helped us a lot with this presentation and gave us a lot of really great information. She's at Ann Wendell and does awesome things there. I bet a bunch of you know her, but she wishes she could be here, but she had meetings today, so she is also a part of this presentation. So today we're going to talk about some really fun things. We're going to be talking about preventing language disorders in low socioeconomic homes. For our deaf and hard of hearing kiddos, as I know a lot of you guys have some kiddos and you are even just learning about how to develop good language prevention for disorders and things like that. So we're just going to kind of address that in some really fun ways. Hold on, we're having some time. There we go.
So why is this important to talk about? So I found this really great article that talks about how low-income individuals, specifically children, are more likely to suffer from hearing loss. And the reason they are more likely to suffer from hearing loss is because of frequent middle ear infections, malnutrition, and lead poisoning. And these factors, sadly, can all lead to hearing loss over time. Also, I found out that low-income mothers are less likely to access health care, including therapy services for their children, because they fear they'll be unable to afford the services, or they feel like their child just does not need the service. And knowing this, I think it's important for us as speech pathologists to promote to this population the importance of early intervention services, because by promoting early intervention services, we will hopefully help low-income children's literacy skills, social skills, and attitudes regarding their self-esteem. So how can low SES affect language? So young children raised in poverty experience impoverished language environments with less lexical diversity and gestures, as well as fewer conversational turns and open-ended questions, while being exposed to significantly more directives such as no, stop that, eat, than higher SES peers. By third grade, low SES children have smaller vocabularies, lower reading proficiency, and lower standardized test scores. The average literacy rate of deaf or hard of hearing students at high school graduation is at a fourth grade level, with more than 1/3 being considered functionally illiterate. So why do parents play such a huge role in language development with deaf or hard of hearing children? Involving parents is particularly critical for low SES children because these parents are essential for language models, assuring rehabilitation commitment, extending the benefits of therapy beyond the session, and ensuring consistent use of amplification. So the areas to work with in deaf or hard of hearing children are their vocabulary, expressive vocalizations, receptive understanding, sentence structure, play, and reading.
Alrighty, so now we're going to kind of transition into some things that we can do to help prevent those language disorders that often develop in a lot of different populations. And so these are just some really easy ways just to kind of get language in your guys' family. Because I know seeing those statistics can be very overwhelming, and we want to make sure that we're as comfortable and confident as we can be when we're working with our kiddos. So some important things to do in our daily life to promote language is talk about those daily events or routines. If you're going grocery shopping, make sure we're talking about that when we're getting dressed, things like that. Make sure we're having turn-taking conversations, not just using directives and yes/no answers. You want to ask those open-ended questions and get your child engaged, and make sure that you're getting them engaged to communicate and not just kind of shutting down the communication because you get a little too busy. Really let them open up and flourish with their language. And play is one of the most essential parts of developing language. It's their time to be creative and grow, and if you're playing with them, you can use some really great language techniques that we can go over that would really help their language flourish. So we're going to kind of talk about two different areas today that's really essential for our deaf and hard of hearing kiddos. this is just areas that they really struggle in, and it's going to be our semantics and our syntax. So first we have semantics, which can be defined as the meaning of words and combinations of words and language. This is from our national standards that we have as speech language pathologists, and this is just basically vocabulary. It is so important for our children to learn vocabulary because it develops their language and also develops their literacy skills. It's extremely important that we help build their vocabularies up. So some ways that we can do that in our house, we can talk about the daily routine. So if we're baking, we can talk about the recipes of the sizes and the colors and the foods that we're using. Shopping, if we're cleaning, we can talk about the steps that we're doing, the things in our house that we're using to clean. We can talk about whose turn it is. Playtime is so important, as I said, playing inside and outside. There's so many opportunities to talk about what you're doing inside compared to outside and things like that. And those personal routines are just really awesome for pattern development, and just like getting ready for bed, going to school or going to daycare, talking about those kind of steps. You want to be talking to your children truly as much as you can because they are absorbing everything that you say. You're such a model for them, and it's so important that you guys have these conversations and it's not just wasted time. So next we're going to talk about syntax, which is another really important area for deaf and hard of hearing kiddos to be working on. And this can be defined as the rules that pertain to the ways in which words can be combined to form sentences in language, which is another fun word. We can just call it grammar. And grammar is so important because it teaches patterns, which is used in spoken language and also in reading. And they will look to you on the way that your voice changes, the way that you use your words. You're their model, so it's really important that you're kind of aware of this. So some things that we can do at home to kind of address syntax and all that grammatical things in our language is watch reading books or educational videos on YouTube. Those are really fun. I know having some screen time can always be a really fun thing to do together, so you can do that. And then we kind of talked about those scaffolding techniques a minute ago, but expanding on their language during daily routines and playtime. So this can be kind of confusing, but a good way to think about this is if your child's asking for, say, oh, dog, go, you would go back and say, oh, the dog is going. You're adding more language and developing those grown-up sentences because that's what they're going to model towards. So that's just kind of the stepping stone. So when they're saying that, make sure that you're going back in and using those techniques. We also have model correct language use of your child. That's really important. I know it's really cute when your little one says baba, but you want to make sure when they were saying baba and trying to request it, you say, oh, here's your bottle, and you're using those correct vocabulary words and things like that so that they're able to develop the language. And then this is from our deaf education teacher. She really has an emphasis on literacy. It's so important for our deaf and hard of hearing kiddos. I know we read that statistic a minute ago that the average high schooler graduates with a 4th grade reading level, and that is absolutely terrifying for a parent. And so we want to make sure that we develop as much language as we can, and language and reading kind of go hand in hand. So reading aloud to your child can really help them develop syntax and semantics. So those all those grammatical techniques and vocabulary and also social skills. Books are so important for kiddos and reading to them. And even if you don't have the chance to read to them every night, there's some really great resources we have found for you guys. So there is Books and Epic Books, which is an online reading resource, and also apps that have either they have read alouds, they have movie projection books, they have a whole variety, and they have clubs that you can do. It's really fun. I highly recommend that one. We also have YouTube read aloud books. They're everywhere nowadays. And that's also a really fun opportunity. And then I know COVID's happening right now, but library books are such a great resource to use with your kiddos. Truly, just can't go wrong with the library card, and they probably have programs that you can do. So that's some fun options. And then we have all of our resources that we addressed in our presentation where we got our things. And then we just wanted to quickly talk about how this presentation was kind of developed towards that low SES population. It was developed so it's all things that you can do in the home and doesn't require a Mr. Potato Head or a fishing articulation game. It's things that you can do in home that has the parents going, and it's more parent coaching rather than all of these steps. That's the whole point, is we're trying to build confidence in our parents. That's incredibly important in preventing language and things like that. Alex, do you have anything else to add to that?
I don't.
Alrighty. Well, thank you so much for coming to our presentation today. We really appreciated having you here. And we can't wait to see what you guys are going to do.
Thank you.
Thank you.